Hello, and welcome to the English Channel, a simple space for curious minds and growing English skills. We explore exciting topics, amazing books, and real-life ideas, all in clear, easy English. Whether you're learning words, practicing listening, or just love good stories, this podcast is for you.
Hey, Liam here, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
And I'm Lisa, ready to get into something super important for many of you listening.
Today, we're really unpacking the TOEFL exam. If you're thinking about studying abroad, like at an English-speaking university, you've probably heard of it.
Oh, definitely. It's often a huge requirement. And honestly, understanding how this test works is a massive step towards, making those academic dreams happen.
It really is. It's not just about your English level. It's about navigating the test itself.
Exactly. Knowing the format, the types of questions, that's half the battle.
So that's what we're doing today. We'll break down the whole structure: reading, listening, speaking, writing. All 4 sections.
Yep. And we'll look closely at the kinds of questions they throw at you in each part.
Our goal here is simple. By the end of this, you should have a much clearer picture of the TOEFL. Less mystery, less stress.
Hopefully making that whole preparation process feel a bit less daunting.
Precisely. Yeah. Okay, ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Where should we start?
Let's kick things off with the reading section. So what you're looking at here is typically 3 or 4 passages.
And they're pretty substantial, right? Around 700 words each.
Yeah, exactly. And you get about 10 multiple choice questions for each one. The timing can vary a bit, usually somewhere between 54 and 72 minutes for the whole section.
And the passages themselves, they're like excerpts from university textbooks, right? Different subjects.
There'll be science, history, art, pretty diverse. But here's the key thing. You really need to remember this.
What's that?
All the information you need to answer the questions is right there in the passage. You don't need outside knowledge on the topic.
Okay, that's reassuring. So it's all about understanding that specific text.
Exactly. It tests your academic reading skills. Okay, so there are, believe it or not, 8 different types of questions in this section.
8. Wow. Okay, let's break them down. What's first?
First up, we have factual information questions. These are pretty straightforward.
Like just finding facts stated in the text.
Yep. The question asks about something the passage explicitly mentions. For example, if a passage discusses past climates, a question might ask, what does the passage say about summer temperatures during X period?
And the answer would be directly stated, like summers were warmer or the climate was milder than today's.
Exactly. You just need to locate that specific piece of information. The wrong answers might contradict the text or just not be mentioned.
Got it. Find the fact. What's next?
Next are negative factual information questions. Similar idea, but flipped.
Flipped. How so?
Instead of finding what is true according to the passage, you have to find the one thing out of 4 options that is not true or not mentioned.
Ah, okay. So you're looking for the exception. The lie, basically.
Pretty much. They often use words like not or except in all caps to signal this type. So if a passage lists features of an old city, the question might ask which feature is not mentioned.
Okay, makes sense. Find the one that doesn't fit based on the text.
Right. Then number 3, inference questions. These are a bit trickier.
Because the answer isn't stated directly.
Exactly. You have to read between the lines. The passage provides clues, and you need to figure out what's implied or suggested.
Okay, can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a passage talks about a settlement near a volcano. It mentions the settlement disappeared after an eruption buried its farmland in ash.
Okay.
The passage might not explicitly state this settlement relied on farming, but you can infer that, right? Because the loss of farmland led to its disappearance.
Ah, I see. It's implied by the cause and effect described. Makes sense.
Cool. Number 4 is rhetorical purpose questions.
Rhetorical purpose. Sounds fancy. What's it about?
It's about understanding why the author included a particular piece of information. What was their goal in saying that specific thing in that specific place?
So not what they said, but why they said it.
Exactly. For instance, a passage about dinosaur extinction might mention that snakes and turtles survived the event that wiped out the dinosaurs. A rhetorical purpose question might ask why the author mentioned the snakes and turtles. The answer could be something like, to challenge the idea that climate change was the only cause, since those animals also lived through it.
Gotcha. Understanding the author's strategy or argument.
Precisely. Okay, next up, vocabulary questions.
Ah, testing word meanings.
Yep, but it's specifically about the meaning of a word or phrase in the context of the passage.
Right. So just knowing the dictionary definition might not be enough.
Correct. You need to see how it's used in that particular sentence, that paragraph. If a passage uses the word disruption to talk about an earthquake.
You'd look for a synonym like disturbance rather than, say, interruption of a meeting.
Exactly. Using the surrounding words, the context, is key. Process of elimination often works well here.
Good tip. What else?
Sentence simplification questions. These give you a complex sentence from the passage.
And you have to pick the option that means basically the same thing but simpler.
You got it. The trick is that the options might use similar words, but only one captures the essential meaning and the relationship between the ideas correctly.
Like cause and effect, or the order of events.
Yes. For instance, if a sentence describes the Mediterranean Sea drying up and then refilling after tectonic shifts open the Strait of Gibraltar, the correct simplification has to keep that sequence right. Drying up first, then refilling.
Okay, pay attention to the core message and the logic.
Absolutely. Seventh type, insert text questions.
Where you have to put a sentence into the paragraph.
That's the one. You get a sentence that's been removed from the passage, and you see 4 possible spots marked with squares where it could go.
And you have to pick the spot where it fits most logically.
Exactly. You need to look at the sentences before and after each square. Where does the new sentence connect best? Does it continue an idea, provide an example, signal a transition?
So it's about understanding the flow of ideas in the paragraph.
Perfectly put. For example, if a paragraph is describing ancient artifacts and the sentence to insert is about finding specific types of pottery, you'd put it where pottery fits into the discussion.
Right. Okay, one more type left.
Yep, the last one is a big one. Pro-summary, or sometimes fill-in-the-table questions.
Pro-summary. Summarizing the main points.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
You'll get maybe 6 statements, and you have to choose the 3 that best represent the most important ideas of the entire passage.
And the other 3 would be wrong, or maybe just minor details.
Exactly. They might be too specific, even if technically true, or just inaccurate based on the passage.
How do you tackle that? The whole passage is a lot to summarize.
A good strategy is skimming first, read the introduction paragraph, then maybe the first and last sentence of each body paragraph, and the conclusion. Get the gist.
Okay, like a quick overview.
Right. Then you evaluate the 6 options against that overall understanding. For example, if the passage was about geologists studying the Mediterranean's past.
You'd look for the main stages they discussed, the key findings.
And ignore options that focus on, say, one specific type of rock sample mentioned, unless it was central to the whole argument. Fill in the table is similar, but you're dragging points into categories in the table.
Okay, that covers the 8 types. Phew. Any general tips for reading?
Definitely. Read widely. Newspapers, academic journals, even research papers if you can. Get used to that style.
Practice identifying main ideas and how arguments flow.
Yes, and always look up words you don't know. Build that vocabulary. It helps everywhere on the TOEFL.
Great advice. Okay, shall we move on to listening?
Let's do it. The listening section. This is where you, listen.
Makes sense. What kind of things do you listen to?
2 main types. Lectures and conversations. You'll get 3 or 4 lectures, usually 3 to 5 minutes long, with 6 questions each.
Okay, like university lectures.
Pretty much. And then 2 or 3 conversations, shorter, maybe around 3 minutes, with 5 questions each. These are often campus life situations, like talking to a professor or a librarian.
Right, and the really crucial thing here is...
You only hear it once. No replays.
Wow, okay. Pressure's on.
And you can't go back to previous questions either. Once you answer, you move on.
So note-taking must be absolutely vital here.
You bet. You are allowed to take notes while listening, and honestly, developing a good note-taking strategy is probably the single most important skill for this section.
How long does this section usually take?
It varies, 41 to 57 minutes. That's because they sometimes include extra unscored questions for research purposes.
Experimental questions, so you won't know which ones count.
Nope. You just have to treat them all seriously. Okay, so, like reading, listening also has different question types. 7 this time.
7 types. Okay, let's hear them.
First, gist content or gist purpose questions. These usually come right at the beginning.
Gist, like the main idea.
Exactly. Gist content asks what the lecture or conversation was mainly about. Gist purpose asks why they were having the conversation, or why the professor gave that lecture.
So the main topic versus the main reason for the talk?
Right. For instance, a student talks to a librarian. They might start by asking for general pointers on finding articles. Even if they then discuss specific databases, the purpose was that initial request for guidance.
Okay, understand the main point or reason. What's next?
Detail questions. These are like factual information in reading.
Asking about specific things mentioned.
Yep. Explicitly stated facts or details from the audio. Not the main idea, but the smaller points. In that librarian chat, maybe they mentioned a specific interlibrary loan policy. A detailed question could ask about that policy.
Got it. Straight recall of specific info?
Then function questions.
Oh.
These are about understanding why a speaker said something in a particular way.
More like the rhetorical purpose questions in reading. Understanding the intent behind the words.
Kind of, yeah. It's often about implied meaning. If the librarian says, yep, that's the idea, after the student explains something.
The function is to confirm the student understood correctly.
Exactly. It's about the role this specific phrase plays in the conversation.
Cool. What's number 4?
Attitude questions. These focus on the speaker's feelings, emotions, or opinion.
How do you figure that out if they don't explicitly say, I feel happy?
Tone of voice. Also, word choice. If a literature professor is talking about a novel and says things like brilliant, masterpiece, and sounds really enthusiastic.
You can infer their attitude is positive, appreciative.
Precisely. You have to listen to how they say things.
Makes sense.
That's
Tone is key. Number 5.
Organization questions. These are usually about lectures. They ask how the information is structured.
Like how the professor organized the points? Or why they used a certain example?
Both, yeah. Why did they present point A before point B? What was the purpose of mentioning that specific study? If a history lecture covers causes of a war, maybe it discusses economic factors first, then political ones. An organization question could ask why that order was chosen.
Understanding the structure and flow of the lecture.
Okay, number 6. Connecting content questions.
Connecting, like
Yeah.
linking different pieces of information.
Exactly. You might need to combine information mentioned at different points in the audio to answer the question. Maybe a student mentions needing special gloves to handle rare books early on, and later the librarian mentions temperature control is crucial for preservation.
And the question might ask why the gloves are needed, requiring you to link the fragility of old paper, implied by temperature control, with the need for gloves.
Perfect example. You got it. Putting pieces together.
Okay, and the last one, number 7.
Inference questions again, just like in reading.
Reading between the lines, based on what was said.
Yep. Drawing conclusions that aren't explicitly stated but are strongly suggested. If a professor mentions some surprising experimental results and then says, well, clearly more research is needed.
You can infer that the current results aren't conclusive yet.
Exactly. Understanding the implications.
Okay, those are the 7 types. So, for improving listening skills,
Practice, practice, practice. Listen to English every day. Podcasts are great.
stand-up comedy, university lectures you can find online.
All excellent choices. Pay attention to tone for those attitude questions. Listen for signal words first. Next, however, in conclusion, they signal the organization.
And note-taking. You
Yeah.
mentioned that was crucial.
Absolutely. Find a system that works for you. Keywords, symbols, arrows, maybe short sentences. Some people like mind maps. Experiment.
Like maybe writing the main topic, then indenting key details, using arrows to show connections.
That's a great method. The keyword connection approach. Visualizing the links can really help recall when you get to the questions.
Yeah, I can see how that would work. I actually had a bit of a rough time with note-taking during the at-home TOEFL once.
Oh, what happened?
They made us use a whiteboard and marker. The space was tiny, the marker started fading, and you had to erase everything between sections. It was stressful and definitely didn't help my listening score, I think.
Oof, yeah, that sounds tough. Good to know that can be a factor for the at-home version. Okay, ready to tackle speaking.
Sure thing. The speaking section. How long is this one?
It's pretty short, actually, only about 17 minutes total for 4 tasks.
4 tasks in 17 minutes. Sounds intense.
It moves quickly. There's 1 independent task where you speak your own opinion, and 3 integrated tasks where you combine listening or reading with speaking.
Okay, let's start with the independent one.
Right. Independent speaking task.
Mm.
You get a question, often asking you to choose between 2 options or state your preference on a topic. Like, do you prefer spending time with friends at a restaurant or at home? Explain why.
Okay, a personal opinion question. How much time do you get?
Not much. 15 seconds to prepare, then 45 seconds to speak.
15 seconds prep. Wow, how do you even prepare?
Quickly, pick a side immediately. Don't waste time debating. Then jot down maybe 2 keywords or short phrases for your reasons. Forget full sentences.
So if the question is restaurant versus home, pick one, maybe jot down new places, and post-COVID if you choose restaurant.
Exactly. Then have a basic structure ready in your head. Like, I think option is better because reason 1, also reason 2. So that's why I prefer option.
Simple skeleton answer. And sticking to just 1 or 2 points helps you explain them better in 45 seconds.
Definitely. Trying to cram in too much makes it sound rushed and superficial.
Mm-hmm.
Better to explain 1 or 2 reasons well, maybe with a tiny example.
Okay, so for the restaurant example, you could say, I prefer restaurants because first, especially after being inside so much, I love exploring new places. Second, I discovered this amazing little Swiss cafe recently, and sharing that experience was great. So yeah, restaurants for me.
Perfect. Clear, concise, reasons given. Remember, no right or wrong opinion, just clarity and support.
Got it. What about the other 3 tasks, the integrated ones?
Right. The first integrated one is called campus situation. You read a short text, maybe a university announcement.
Like they're changing library hours or something.
Would be. Then you listen to a conversation, usually 2 students, discussing that announcement. One of them will have a strong opinion.
Okay, so read, then listen to an opinion. What's the task?
You have to summarize the speaker's opinion from the conversation and explain the reasons they gave for it. You get 30 seconds to prep, 60 seconds to speak.
A whole minute this time? How should you take notes for this?
A 2-column approach works great. Left side, main points from the reading passage. Right side, the speaker's opinion, agree, disagree, and their reasons from the listening.
So you can clearly see the connection or contrast between the announcement and the student's view.
Exactly. And again, have a skeleton ready. Something like, the announcement states that brief summary of reading. The student in the conversation disagrees, agrees with this. Their first reason is reason 1 from listening. Their second reason is reason 2 from listening. And that's why they feel this way.
Okay, so structure is key again. Let's say the announcement is about cutting the sculpture program.
And the student disagrees, saying lots of students are interested, and suggesting maybe hiring part-time professors instead of cutting it entirely.
Your answer would summarize the announcement, state the student's disagreement, and explain those 2 reasons: student interest and the alternative budget solution.
You've got it. Stick to the structure, hit the key points.
Okay, what's the second integrated task?
This one is academic subject. Similar structure. Read, then listen. But this time, the reading is a short academic passage explaining a concept.
Like from a biology or psychology textbook.
Yep. Then you listen to a part of a lecture where the professor elaborates on that concept, usually giving specific examples.
Okay, concept and reading, examples and listening. What's the task?
Explain the concept from the reading and show how the examples from the lecture illustrate or support that concept. Again, 30 seconds prep, 60 seconds speaking.
Note-taking here. Focus on the definition or concept in the reading and the specific examples in the lecture.
Absolutely. For instance, the reading explains revealing coloration in insects. You'd note down the definition. Then the lecture gives examples like the peanut bug showing its big eye spots or the morpho butterfly flashing its blue wings.
And you'd note down peanut bug eye spots, morpho blue wings.
Exactly. Then your spoken response connects them. A possible skeleton. The article explains concept, for example, revealing coloration, which is one brief definition. The professor illustrates this with the example of the first example, e.g. peanut bug. When threatened, it action, for example, shows eye spots to purpose, for example, startle predator. Another example is the second example, morpho butterfly, which action, for example, flashes blue wings to purpose, for example, confuse predators.
So clearly link the examples back to the main concept and paraphrase, right? Don't just read your notes.
Definitely paraphrase. Use your own words as much as possible and stick only to the information given.
Okay, one more speaking task left.
The last one. It's also integrated, but it's listening-only input.
So no reading this time.
Nope. You just listen to a short academic lecture, maybe 1-2 minutes long. Then you have to summarize the main points of the lecture.
How long do you get for prep and speaking?
Even quicker prep here. Just 20 seconds. Then 60 seconds to speak.
Wow, 20 seconds. Note-taking during the lecture must be super efficient.
Absolutely critical. You need to quickly grasp the main topic and the key supporting details or examples the professor provides. Let's say the lecture is about 2 different pricing strategies for businesses.
Okay.
You need to note down what the first strategy is, for example, cost plus pricing, and its main feature or example, and then the second strategy, e.g. value-based pricing, and its key feature or example.
And the skeleton for the response.
Could be something like, the lecture discusses 2 main types of topic, e.g. pricing strategies. First, the professor explains strategy 1, e.g. cost plus pricing, which involves brief explanation example. The second approach mentioned is strategy 2, value-based pricing, where the focus is on brief explanation example. So these were the 2 strategies covered in the lecture.
Clear and concise summary. Finding a note-taking style that works for you quickly seems really important for this one. Keywords, arrows, maybe short phrases.
Whatever lets you capture the core ideas fast. Practice is key here.
Any general tips for the whole speaking section?
Yes. Record yourself practicing. It feels awkward at first, but it's so helpful.
To check timing, filler words like, clarity.
Exactly. See if your skeletons are working, if you sound natural. Try to speak calmly, at a normal pace. Don't try to sound like a robot reading a script. Natural pauses are fine.
Good advice. Stay calm and practice. Okay, shall we move to the final section, writing?
Let's wrap up with writing. 2 tasks here, 50 minutes total.
50 minutes for 2 essays. Okay. What's the first task?
It's the integrated writing task. Similar to the integrated speaking tasks, you combine skills. You read an academic passage, then listen to a lecture on the same topic.
But the lecturer usually disagrees or offers a different view, right?
Often, yes. It might challenge the points made in the reading, or sometimes add specific counter-argument or alternative explanations. Your job is to write an essay summarizing the main points from both the reading and the listening, and crucially, explaining the relationship between them, usually how the lecturer casts doubt on or refutes the reading.
How long do you have for this one?
20 minutes. That includes reading, listening, and writing.
Okay, that's tight. Note-taking strategy. Similar to the integrated speaking.
Very similar. 2 columns or sections on your paper. Reading points versus listening points. Briefly summarize the main arguments from the reading. Then, as you listen, focus intently on how the lecturer responds to each of those points. Do they disagree? Why? What evidence do they give? Capture as much detail from the lecture as you can.
And the essay structure.
Pretty standard. Introduction. State the main topic and briefly mention the conflicting views. Then, body paragraphs. Tackle one main point from the reading per paragraph. Explain the lecturer's counter-argument or differing view on that specific point using details from your notes. Use transition words, however, in contrast according to the lecturer, to show the relationship clearly.
So paragraph 1 might be reading point 1 versus lecture rebuttal 1. Paragraph 2 is reading point 2 versus lecture rebuttal 2, and so on.
Exactly. Then a brief conclusion if you have time. And definitely leave a minute or 2 at the end to proofread. Check for grammar, spelling, typos.
Good point. Easy mistakes to make under pressure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Make sure you clearly show how the lecture challenges the reading. That's the core of the task.
Okay, integrated writing. Read, listen, summarize, contrast, proofread. What's the second writing task?
That's the independent writing task. This one is all you.
Like the independent speaking task, but written.
Pretty much. You get a prompt asking for your opinion on a specific issue. For example, do you agree or disagree with the statement? Television advertising directed at young children under age 12 should not be allowed. You have to state your opinion and support it with clear reasons and specific examples.
How long for this one?
You get 30 minutes.
Okay, a bit more time. How should you approach it?
Plan first. Don't just start writing. Take 3-5 minutes to brainstorm. Choose your position, agree or disagree, and think of at least 3 solid reasons to support it.
Few reasons. Why 3?
It usually leads to a well-structured 5-paragraph essay, intro, 3 body paragraphs, 1 for each reason, and a conclusion. For each reason, jot down a quick example or detail you can use to elaborate.
So outline first. Opinion, reason 1 plus example, reason 2 plus example, reason 3 plus example.
Exactly. Then write your first draft. Don't aim for perfection yet. Just get your ideas down following your outline.
And then use the remaining time to revise.
Yes. Polish it up. Improve vocabulary, sentence structure, add transition words between paragraphs. Check for clarity. Make sure your examples really support your reasons. Cut out anything repetitive. Proofread for errors.
And like the independent speaking, the actual opinion doesn't matter as much as how well you argue for it.
Correct. They're assessing your ability to write a clear, well-organized, well-supported, argumentative essay in English. Your logic and examples are what count.
Got it. So planning, structure, clear reasons, specific examples, and revision are key.
You nailed it. That covers the writing section.
Phew. That's a lot to take in for the whole TOEFL. We've covered the format, all 4 sections.
Reading, listening, speaking, writing. The different question types in each, some strategies.
It really highlights how important just understanding the structure of the test is, alongside practicing the actual English skills.
Absolutely. Knowing what's coming can make a huge difference. And speaking of practice, we have one final bonus tip.
Oh, what's that?
Take mock tests. Full-length TOEFL mock tests under timed conditions.
Ah, simulating the real thing as closely as possible.
Exactly. It does so much for you.
Yeah.
You get familiar with the computer interface, you practice your note-taking under pressure, you feel the timing constraints for each section.
And build stamina for the whole 3-hour exam.
Totally. Doing several mock tests is probably one of the best ways to prepare for the actual test day experience.
Where can people find these mock tests?
There are free official resources online from ETS, the makers of TOEFL, and there are lots of reputable companies that offer paid practice materials and tests too, if you feel you need more.
Good to know there are options.
We know tackling the TOEFL is a big undertaking, especially when you're juggling it with applications and everything else.
Yeah, it's a significant step towards those academic goals.
So we really hope this deep dive has helped demystify it a bit, maybe made the preparation feel a little more manageable for you.
We're definitely rooting for everyone listening who's going through this process. Best of luck with your prep and the exam itself.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. If this was helpful, we'd love it if you could give us a like or share it with friends who might also be facing the TOEFL.
And, subscribe to the channel. We'll keep diving deep into useful topics.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Go out there and tackle that TOEFL.
You can do it.